Okay. Okay. All right. Hello, everybody. As Jen said, my name is Christy Bender. I am an oncology dietitian with the Cancer Institutes at AHN. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about emotional eating. I know this is probably like a hot topic for a lot of people because this is, the United States and it's a stressful time of life, and, food is always there for everybody. So we are going to talk about it in the context of intuitive eating, though. So I will give you a little bit of background on that. Okay, so getting right into it, we're going to just start with what intuitive eating is. So intuitive eating is a non-diet approach that was developed by these two dietitians, Evelyn Tribioli and Elise Resch. And it is an approach to changing eating habits and a person's relationship with food. And it emphasizes honoring your hunger cues, your fullness cues, eating for satisfaction, respecting your own body, and honoring your health. It does not emphasize or even include any ideas of good foods or bad foods. It kind of embraces an all foods fit approach, which is great. Because, who doesn't need a bowl of ice cream sometimes? And it rejects the rigidity that diets typically employ around limiting certain types of food. So these are the 10 principles of intuitive eating. This is like a nice little graphic that shows it. So number one, I'm so sorry. Number one is rejecting the diet mentality. 2 is honoring your hunger. 3 is making peace with food. 4 is challenging the food police. 5 is discovering the satisfaction factor. 6 is feeling your fullness. 7 is what we're going to be focusing on tonight, which is coping with your emotions with kindness. And then 8 is respecting your body. 9 is moving and feeling the difference of movement, which I see you all have been doing a great job of, which is wonderful. And then 10 is honoring your health with gentle nutrition. So we'll kind of go through those a little bit more in depth and see kind of what they are. So number 1 is rejecting your diet mentality. So this is getting rid of all the books, all your magazines, all your Fitness Pal apps, your Lose It apps. These all just offer false hope of losing weight quickly and permanently. And it also means getting angry with diet culture, because this culture that we all seem to get into at one point or another promotes unreasonable and unsustainable expectations of fast and permanent weight loss, which isn't true and doesn't really work. And the culture inherently makes you, the consumer, feel at fault every time a fad diet doesn't work. And number 2 is honoring your hunger, which kind of means keeping your body fed with adequate energy. So this can be a little tricky if you're going through cancer treatment, because sometimes the different drug regimens you might be on might be kind of hindering your appetite. But it is focusing on, adequate energy and eating enough throughout the day. So this includes carbs. Carbs are not bad. They're actually your brain's and your body's preferred fuel source. And then it avoids becoming too hungry or too ravenous, and also avoids filling yourself up to the brim and feeling sick. Number 3 is making peace with food. It's giving yourself the permission and the ability to eat whatever you want. So if you feel like you want some chocolate, you should eat the chocolate. If you really want a slice of cheese, go get the cheese. The key here is not to restrict certain foods, because deprivation can later lead to binging on the certain foods that you're restricting. And then, you're overeating and you're undoing everything that you've learned in number 2, which is honoring your hunger. And then I did attach a quote here from the book that I felt was interesting. Once you reach the moment of excessive hunger, all intentions of moderate conscious eating are irrelevant. So this kind of plays on the avoiding becoming ravenous. I know we've probably all been there before. You're stuck in the car a little too long after work, and you get home and you just eat everything in sight, and then you don't want dinner. So, I advanced the slide. Okay, sorry. Next is challenging the food police. This is the made-up precinct in your head, and it's comprised of the unreasonable and unsustainable rules that diet culture has created and instilled in your brain. The goal is to challenge these thoughts and think eating too little calories is a win, or making you feel guilty for eating the food that you just made peace with on the last slide. Number 5 is discovering the satisfaction factor, which this principle is all about understanding your body's hunger cues and fullness cues. When you eat until you're satisfied, not until you're stuffed, in a pleasing environment that's calming and not stressful, you'll feel more pleasure and contentment than you did before. And then I, excuse me, attached another quote here that I thought was really important and kind of showing what this encompasses, which is, when you eat what you really want in an environment that is inviting, the pleasure you derive will be a powerful force in helping you feel satisfied and content. Number 6 is feeling your fullness. So listening to signals that you're no longer hungry. This can be that foods no longer taste satisfying. So paying attention when you're eating, does this food still taste as good as it did when I started eating it? And then pausing to ask yourself during your meal, like, am I really hungry enough to finish this plate? Like, am I gonna feel too full afterwards? Do I need to finish everything on my plate, or can I maybe put some in the Tupperware for tomorrow? And then this graphic I just thought was helpful because I talked a lot about hunger and fullness and like a scale. So the goal here that Evelyn and Elise talk about is staying between number 3, which is like an empty feeling, you're hungry, you're ready to eat, but you're not like, you know, your stomach's not growling, you're not getting headaches, your blood sugar's not too low. And then also staying between 3 and 7, which is like a comfortable fullness. So not the Thanksgiving dinner 10 where you're like, oh God, I need a nap. And then, so number 7, like I said, is what we're going to focus on tonight, coping with your emotions with kindness. So emotions and eating are both very important human things. And sometimes using the comfort that good food brings to calm or ease emotions is also a very human thing. So you're not alone. I think if all of us were being honest with ourselves, we could all pin down a certain food or a certain time that we've used food to cope with certain emotions. You know, good food brings calm or ease to emotions, and just be kind to yourself when this happens. So we'll talk about that a little bit more in the coming slides. Number 8 is respecting your body. All bodies deserve dignity, no matter what size they are. And it's important to accept your genetic makeup and feel comfortable with who you are. A quote, I didn't put this on the slide, but it stood out to me in the book, is just as ridiculous as it is to think that you can shrink your size 8 feet to be a size 5, it is equally as futile to constantly try to shrink our bodies into smaller sizes. Some bodies have larger frames. So it's, you know, everyone wants to be that, you know, size 0 model that you see on whatever magazine, or, you know, at the mannequins at JCPenney. But it's not realistic, and everybody is built differently. So it's important to remember that all of you and I could all move our bodies the exact same way. We could do the exact same amount of exercise with the exact same weights. We could eat the same amount of food, same amount of calories, and we would all still look different at the end of the day. So one, you know, diet or one movement doesn't work for everybody the same. Number 9 is movement and feeling the difference. Exercise doesn't have to be a task, and it doesn't have to be not enjoyable, doesn't have to be burdensome. It can be a movement that your body enjoys. So I saw, like tonight, some of you guys have the opportunity to do yoga with cancer bridges, which is wonderful. Like that is as much movement and good for your body as is running or lifting or swimming or climbing rocks or whatever. It's important to reframe your mindset to moving your body for your mental and physical health rather than for the purpose of burning calories, so that it's enjoyable and isn't, you know, a task. And then finally is honoring your hunger with gentle nutrition. Make food choices that honor your health and your taste buds while making you feel good. So, you know, yes, we might all want, a big bowl of chocolate ice cream sometimes, but maybe pair it with like, a vegetable or some protein so that you're feeling satisfied and not just like you have a food hangover afterwards. You're eating a balance of different foods that taste good to you and prioritizing produce when you're able, finding a way that nutritious food tastes good to you. And so like maybe you're not a salad person, that's okay. You don't have to eat salad. Maybe you can roast your veggies, fry your veggies, add them to soups or whatever tastes good to you that you're going to enjoy consuming them. All right, so then we're going to dive right into coping with your emotions with kindness. So physical and mental food restriction can trigger a loss of control. For some, food's a distraction from boring activities or a filler for empty times. For others, it can be the only comfort that they have through a painful life. However, food is not a solution to any of these emotions that we may experience. It is important to try and understand the emotions that you're feeling and why to best cope with them. So try to understand why you're feeling the way you are, why you're reaching for the bowl of nuts for the fourth time in 10 minutes. Emotional eating is just a Band-Aid fix. It will comfort for the short term. It will distract you for the short term, distract you from the pain, but it won't solve the problem that's causing the pain. So it's kind of up to you at the end of the day to deal with your emotions and the source of them. And then it's also equally as important to realize that, like I said earlier, emotional eating is a human reaction and it's very normal. I think we all have done it once or twice or more. And becoming an intuitive eater means letting go of the guilt that's associated with utilizing food as a coping mechanism. So, you don't berate yourself every time you realize you've done it. You just kind of, okay, I'm going to do better next time. And you try to get to the source of the problem. So I included a cute little comic that I found here that I will let you all enjoy. And then we'll talk a little bit more about why food may be your coping mechanism. So I am sure, and I feel pretty confident saying that at least 95% of us on the Zoom call have probably tried dieting at one point or another, whether it was, an increased protein diet to try to gain muscle or, a keto diet to try to lose weight or a low carb, low sugar diet to also lose weight, whatever it may be, we're probably all dieting. A study of over 35,000 adults found that former or current dieters have more emotional eating habits than those with no history of dieting. So you're probably more, I can't think of the word I'm looking for, but you're probably going to be more willing to emotionally eat if you have tried dieting once or twice in the past. So it's also important to realize that society and media have also shown a lot of reasons to cope with food. So if you are watching TV and you're watching commercials, you're probably going to see a Wendy's commercial, or you're probably going to see a Starbucks commercial or Dairy Queen, whatever it may be. And it implies that, food can bring you love and romance. A cup of coffee with your significant other can lead to a diamond ring, whatever it may be. Food may also be a coping mechanism because of nostalgia purposes. If you think back to when you were a kid and you wanted, a bowl of soup when you were sick, or it always felt good when your mom made mac and cheese because it was creamy and delicious, or tradition. So I mean, if we think about it, you blow out the candles on a birthday cake or a birthday dessert on your birthday. You celebrate a wedding with cake. You eat cookies at Christmas time. So, it's normal to have food as a coping mechanism. And this quote that I also grabbed from the book is, each time food is used for a little wound licking or comfort, the emotional bond strengthens. So every time that you do use food, to kind of help you, you're going to become more emotionally attached to it. So what many folks have labeled as emotional eating is just a psychological and biological consequence of food restriction. So it's just important to think of all of these things as part of the reason why you're using food, maybe. Okay, emotions with eating. The eating process itself is inherently emotional. It can in turn inhibit one's ability to eat with attunement. So you may not be able to really feel what you like, feel your fullness or feel your hunger when you're eating emotionally. One of the biggest emotions that ruins attunement is guilt or shame with the eating experience. Guilt and shame insinuate that a moral code was violated. And this isn't really an acceptable thing to feel just because you were eating or fueling your body, unless you're, killing the chef or, stealing something from him. It's not reasonable to feel guilty. And I thought this quote that I attached was important as well. If you can't tell, I really love the book, so you should all just go out and get it. It's a really great resource. But studies have shown that although you may have an immediate emotional comfort from eating, the negative rush of energy that comes after is powerful enough to completely wipe out the relief. If you replace the feelings of guilt with self-compassion, you'll be freed to get curious about your underlying issues and find ways to understand and deal with them. So again, going back to getting to the root of the cause. So this is a terribly grainy graphic. I'm very sorry about that, but this is showing the continuum of emotional eating. So it starts with sensory gratification, goes to comfort, distraction, sedation, and then punishment, which we'll look over in the coming slides as well. And it starts with like mild and, universal sensory eating, and then the opposite, which is like just numbing and almost anesthetizing eating. So we'll go further into this here. So the first one is sensory gratification. The mildest and most common feeling that food can call forth is pleasure, as we all know. There is significance in receiving pleasure from eating, and that's one of the 10 principles that we just talked about, which is number 5, discovering the satisfaction factor. This is a normal and natural part of living that's not only, and it's critical to intuitive eating. So it's important not to underestimate the importance of pleasing your palate. You're not, a salad is never going to replace the piece of chocolate that you want or the bowl of ice cream that you feel like you could really use. So by letting yourself enjoy and appreciate eating, you'll be able to tune into the amount of food you need to feel satisfied. And then by allowing yourself to appreciate eating, you'll be able to tune into the amount of food you need to feel satisfied when you're biologically hungry. So for example, allowing yourself to truly taste all of the special foods that appeal to you at Thanksgiving or any other holiday without restriction. So, you want to taste everything, you get a smaller portion of everything, and make sure you're actually tasting it and enjoying it. And then, if you still want that piece of pumpkin pie, you get it because it's going to taste good, and, you might not be full or satisfied yet. And then this can offset, like eating without restriction and with no rules attached can often offset the disconnected eating that we're talking about. So then we're moving on to comfort, which I'm sure we're all very familiar with. I've attached a few very comforting images on the side. My personal favorite is I always need ice cream at the beach. If I am at the beach, you bet your butt I am getting ice cream every single night, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. So thinking of certain foods can evoke feelings. When I think of a soft serve cone, I think of the beach. You might think of, like I said, mac and cheese earlier, and a rainy day, or a cup of hot soup when you're not feeling great. So those are all probably memory, or the reason you think of that is probably all because of nostalgia purposes, memories that you associate with these foods, relating back to your childhood or other really fun occasions that were carefree. And these evoke a feeling of comfort and peace. And so these are our comfort foods. Eating comfort foods is a very big part of a healthy relationship with food. You can't just get rid of them altogether. And it's important to consume them when you feel present and when you're eating them without feelings of guilt. If, however, food is the first and only thing that comes to mind when you are feeling sad or lonely or even uncomfortable, this can be a problem, and it could be getting in your way of getting to the core of your feelings and the reason that you're feeling the way you are. Next on the continuum is distraction. This is where food can kind of mask your feelings that you don't want to experience. So using food in this way to cope can be troublesome because it blocks your ability to detect your intuitive eating signals like hunger and fullness cues. It inhibits you from discovering the source of your feelings and taking care of your true and actual needs. So a few examples would be the teenager that comes home from school. This was definitely me, and grabbed a bag of chips and turned the TV on because, Mom, I can't do my homework until I eat. I need food to do my homework. And it distracts you from the boredom of doing homework by entertaining you with the TV and the chips. Or it's the executive of a huge company who goes through the entire bowl of peanuts to distract from the anxiety of an exhausting meeting that's coming up. So again, there's nothing wrong with these things, and there's nothing wrong with occasionally wanting to distract yourself from your feelings, because if we sat in our feelings and experienced them all the time, life would just be crazy. We would be so overwhelmed emotionally and physically. But if you find that you're constantly using food to distract you from your feelings, it can be your cue to seek help in order to deal with them in a more beneficial way. So maybe you're going to grab an adult coloring book and, distract yourself that way, or you're going to take a walk, try to clear your mind a little bit, or even just get lost in a good book. Okay, this one is sedation. So I think we've all probably experienced the food coma. This is a more serious form of using food to cope for the purpose of numbing or anesthetizing. Food coma, food hangover, whatever you want to call it. It's eating to sedate yourself. It keeps you from experiencing any feelings for extended periods of time. And this makes it impossible to sense any hunger or fullness cues. It deprives you from the satisfying experience of eating. And it can make you feel out of control, can make you feel out of touch with life and just generally zoned out, and can just become easily like a huge food binge. And then last on the continuum is punishment. So this is like a very extreme version of emotional eating. It's eating large quantities of food to feel like you hurt, like to harm yourself. And so it's sometimes that eating for sedation becomes so frequent and intense that self-blame ensues and ultimately triggers these punishing behaviors. So some people find themselves eating large quantities of food in an angry, forceful way that allows them to feel beaten up or hurt. This is a really severe form of emotional eating, and it can lead to a loss of self-esteem. It can lead to self-hatred. So clients that use food to punish themselves report no pleasure in their eating and actually begin to hate food. This type of severe emotional eating has really only helped with working with an eating disorder counselor, a psychotherapist, or a dietitian who is, trained in intuitive eating. Okay, so now we're going to kind of get into coping with emotional eating. So we've talked about what it is and what it does, and now we're going to talk about how to kind of fix it. So I created a little flow chart here. We're going to start with, am I biologically hungry? Do I feel an emptiness in my stomach that, feels like I need some more food? If yes, then, go honor your hunger like we talked about. It's number 2, and go eat some food. Make sure you're like you're enjoying the food and you're checking in with yourself to see how it tastes and if it's satisfying. If you're not hungry, then what are you feeling? If you're not in tune with your feelings, it can be hard to just kind of be like, oh, I'm just stressed. So it might be helpful to try to write out your feelings, try to write out what you think is happening. For those of us that are outgoing, it can be helpful to call your friends and to talk about your feelings, to talk about what happened at work that day or at home. maybe if you're alone, you can talk about them into your phone, record yourself, and then think about it a little bit more. You can just sit with the feelings and experience them, like cry if you need to, you know, punch a pillow if you need to, go for a walk if you need to. And then also, like, you know, you can always get a therapist or a counselor to talk to about these feelings. And then next is thinking about when you identify those feelings of what's going on, think about what you need. So many people eat to fulfill an unmet need. So for example, this was from the book as well. Molly is a freelance writer who is working into the wee hours of the morning to meet her deadline. I think all of the OT students probably feel me with this one because this was me in grad school as well. Around 3 a.m. in the morning, she found herself walking downstairs into the kitchen and realized she really wasn't hungry, but she was about to devour an entire bowl of ice cream. And then when she thought about it a little bit more, she thought about what she was feeling, and it was frustration, exhaustion, and an unfocused mind. So she turned to the ice cream thinking it would really refocus her, make her feel, you know, energized to finish her, you know, homework or whatever it was. And then she realized that she was trying to feed both her fatigue and her frustration. So she realized what she really needed was rest. And before she went to sleep, she told herself, okay, if I still want the ice cream when I wake up in the morning, I can have it. And she realized it would likely taste better too if she experienced it when she was fully awake rather than half asleep and nodding off into the bowl. Not surprisingly, when you ask what you need, the answer may simply be asking for help. A health therapist has found that kids often have trouble speaking up for their needs, and so do people that cope with emotions through eating. So it can be important to really like try and sit with what you're feeling and figure out what you need. So then moving on to the next one, it's would you please? So it's finding out what you need and then asking somebody to help you with it. Oh, I'm so sorry. Okay. So, you know, if you're a new mom and your partner is at work all day and you're at home with the baby all day, you're constantly giving it attention, and, you know, maybe you're eating every time the baby doesn't need you. And then you realize, okay, I actually just need somebody to help me with this baby. So you ask your partner, like, hey, when you get home after work, can you just give me 30 minutes of alone time so I don't need to just eat all the time to just feel something. That would be like an example of asking for someone to help you a little bit or help to fill the need. And again, it is important to meet your needs with kindness. We're not punishing ourselves. You're entitled to having your needs met. This is very important. There are various ways in which we can learn to handle the unending emotions that life can trigger. It's important to express those feelings and maybe ask someone sometimes even just for a hug if you need it. The first task is learning how to cope with kindness and to acknowledge that you are entitled to having your needs met. So maybe this means just getting more rest. Maybe this means finding a friend that really understands you or really hears what you're saying and accepts it. And then just being intellectually and creatively stimulated in other ways and receiving comfort and warmth, whether that's through other people, through yourself and your own self-care, whatever it may be. So these are just some examples. It's just a ton of words. I'm sure you're all finding your own ways to nurture yourselves, but feeling nurtured can allow you to feel comfort and warmth so that food loses its #1 position in that role in your life. So just some examples, you can listen to some good music, you can take up meditating, join the yoga class at Cancer Bridges, you know, play with your animal if you have one. Maybe you should get an animal. They are very great. I recommend naming them after food. And developing like a network of friends. You're all here, you're all, you know, part of this great community. I think that's very important to really nurture yourself. You can read a book, garden, whatever works for you. And then deal with your feelings. So really understand them, If you receive a steady flow of comfort and nurturing, you'll be better prepared to face emotions that can feel really frightening or overwhelming. So it's important to acknowledge what's troubling you and allow your feelings to come up, allow yourself to cry if you need to, allow yourself to have a minute to just like, let it out. And it reduces your need to push your push your needs down and your feelings down with food. So another amount of suggestions to deal with your feelings are on this slide. So sitting with them and realizing how the intensity of your emotions diminish with time, it can be helpful. Journal, record your feelings on your phone, whatever it may be. And then finally, if you're using food as a distractor, maybe you should find a different distractor. Maybe you should read an absorbing book, a novel or a biography or whatever it may be. And then, take up organizing your closet. I should do that probably. Work on a puzzle or take a nap or do brain games of some sort. Just find something to distract you from your feelings that isn't just food. So that is the end of my spiel. So if there's any questions or comments or concerns, we can go over them. You can just feel free to unmute yourself and speak.